Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the Kate and Eric Show podcast. So today there is a lot to cover here. You have all of the crap that's been going on at our college and universities, and Biden didn't seem to care for the first week that it was all going on, and so there's lots of stuff to get to here. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for all those that continue to listen and all those that have listened in the past. So you can follow me, obviously, on this. So please, on iTunes or Spotify or wherever it is that you're listening to this, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. And then click the notifications. You can get notified whenever new episodes come out. And then the algorithm will be able to do its thing, and more people will be able to come across it. So you can also follow me on Facebook, X, TikTok, True Social, and YouTube, Kate and Eric Show, on all of those social medias. So let's do a little sports update, a little sports stuff here, and we'll get to the nitty-gritty of all this. So the Astros, they're struggling a little bit. They did win 2 series in a row now for the first time this year. So they did, they swept the, who the heck did they play in? Oh, the Rockies in Mexico City. I guess they just had to take a nice, a couple-day vacation in Mexico in order to get things straight there. And then they just beat the Indians. I'm not going to say the Guardians, even though I just did. They just beat the Indians in a 3-game series. They won 2 out of 3 of those. So it's great. It's nice. I kind of expected a little bit of like a downturn, that you eventually, you kind of go down a little bit. I wasn't expecting a fall off the cliff season right after going one win away from going to the World Series yet again. I wasn't expecting like you just fall off the cliff kind of season. But we're just in the beginning of May, so there's a lot of baseball still left to play. And, so hopefully they'll turn things around and make the playoffs and win the division again for a 7th, 8th time now in a row, and go to the ALCS again for a 7th or 8th time in a row. And then I actually did start watching some of the Stars games. I've said that I don't like it. I'm not a fan of any of the Dallas teams. Obviously I'm not going to be a Rangers fan. No, I'm a Houston Astros fan. I'm not a Cowboys fan. If you've listened to the show, I follow the 49ers and the Packers for different reasons. My mom and grandparents lived in California in the Bay Area for a very long time. And so I remember watching 49er games with my grandpa. And then my dad's side, they follow the Packers. So when they do play, I do go with the Niners. So when they did play in the playoffs this last season, I did go with the Niners. But I would have been happy either way with a Packers or a 49ers win. So now I'm not going to follow the Cowboys. I mean, because you hear every year that it's them, them boys, and they're going to do great, and then they just foobar in the playoffs for whatever reason. I did see that they did sign Ezekiel Elliott again, though, so that'll be interesting. But yes, I'm trying to remember the last thing with the sports update last week. So one of kind of a fun story here is my stepsons and one of their good friends actually just got drafted into the NFL. Jatavian Sanders got drafted to the Carolina Panthers, first pick of the 4th round. So he was picked, I don't know what it was, 101 or something. So it was pretty exciting that we'll actually legitimately know an NFL player now. So that's pretty cool. I met him. I don't remember meeting him. Early on, they played middle school ball together and everything like that. And then, so when BYU did play Texas this last season, we went down and a funny story is his mom is an employee of my wife as well. So it's kind of a fun circle there. But yeah, so it's pretty exciting. We were watching this is the first time I've ever watched the NFL draft and cared about it. The other times I'm just like, okay, I just kind of see the results of the top 5 people that were drafted, and then I don't really care. Because I'm coming back to the NFL. There was a time when the whole kneeling, and I hate that Colin Kaepernick was a 49er. With the whole kneeling at the national anthem and protesting the national anthem and all that garbage. So I didn't watch the NFL for a long time, but I did start watching the quarterback story and Kirk Cousins, and I just think he's a great guy. He's a great, just down to earth, normal guy. I really like Brock Purdy. He seems like just a normal guy. Normal, great Christian guy. Christian McCaffrey. I mean, hello, your name's Christian, so you got to be great. And then, of course, Fred Warner, because he played for BYU, is just great, too. So we sat there for the first 3 rounds watching the NFL draft, waiting to see where he would go. And finally, I guess they did it early in the morning or something, and my stepson texted me, hey, he's going to Carolina. So that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool, pretty exciting that we legitimately know an NFL player for real now. Not a joke. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. Hopefully he does great. Hopefully he does well. Jonathan Brooks, also from Texas, was drafted by the Panthers. So they were teammates, obviously, at Texas, if you didn't know that. So there you go. You're welcome. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. Hopefully he does great in the NFL. And he didn't want to go anywhere cold. So Carolina's not very cold in that southern division there. Yeah, he'll be just fine. So it was fun. It was fun to watch, to get kind of into it. After he was drafted, I didn't care afterwards. So it was just like normal. So there's fun story there. Fun story. So hopefully Jatavian does well at Carolina. So let's just get into the fun stuff here. Because if you're not aware, this whole, was it 2 weeks now? This stupid protests have been going on at major colleges and universities across this fruited plain known as America. There's maps where it's obviously, I think the whole epicenter of this whole thing, excuse me, was sort of started in Columbia, in New York City there, and then just infected the rest of the country. And it's interesting, I made the observation that the ones that were allowed to set up their stupid little tents and their little camps and their autonomous zones and all that they all seem to have the same tents. It doesn't matter where or what campus you're in. Even the same, even if it was just one campus that had the same exact tents, it's interesting. It would just be really weird. All the times I've ever gone camping, I've never had the same tent as anybody else. We all kind of have different tents, right? Because there's obviously different sizes. You get a 2-man, you get then it goes all the way, obviously larger, 4-man, 6-man, stuff like that. But these, and I was listening to another show, and they described them very accurately as Hamas holes. So these Hamas holes all had the same tents. Columbia, you could see the pictures, the aerial pictures of them, and they're all the same. You go to any other that were allowed to put up tents. Here in Texas and in Florida, they were not allowed to do so, and they were stopped. But all the other places, they had the same tents. UCLA, there was major clashes between the pro-Hamas people and the pro-Israeli people. But yes, so they all had the same tents. Almost like this whole thing was planned. It started the week of the Passover, and I think there are still some going on. The Columbia, I think they finally got that under control, and there were some interesting things that were found, like I said, NYU. So some interesting signs, some interesting little propaganda paraphernalia that were found at the NYU campus where another one of these things happened. It says here, enter the temporary autonomous zone from New York to Gaza and across Turtle Island. Disrupt, reclaim. What are you trying to reclaim? It's the land is Israel's. It has been for thousands of years. It's really irritating when you have to say that all the time, that the Jews have lived there well before there were any such thing as an Arab, or the word Palestinian was made up. I think either like the Romans or the Greeks made up Palestine. It wasn't like that's originally what the area was called. I mean, when Jesus was there and during his birth, they called it Judea. That all of Judea had to be taxed. The Gospels write about that it was called Judea. There was no Palestine until either after Christ was crucified and resurrected, or just, and so that doesn't, the whole reclaiming thing. Yeah, it wasn't your land anyway. So the little pamphlet here, and there's a little seed, there's a little plant, and there's some buildings. It's really cute. It's all red too, so that's interesting. So it says, disrupt, reclaim, destroy Zionist businesses' interests everywhere. Oh, great. But this is a peaceful protest, just like the summer of 2020 when CNN reporter with buildings blazing behind him said this is a mostly peaceful protest. But the interesting part here, it says, death to Israel real estate, death to America unschool. Squat or rot, do what you want. That's a cute little phrase. Long live the Intifada. And if you're unfamiliar with that, Intifada is violence and destruction. It means today a violence and destruction of the Jews. The Jews have one nation on this entire planet. One small little nation of around 10 million people. You could say America is a Christian nation. The West, it used to be anyway, until we decided to take God out of every part of our lives. Thank you, 1960s, for that. When they decided to remove prayer and the Bible from the schools, claiming separation of church and state, which doesn't exist in the Constitution. It was a letter written by Thomas Jefferson to a Baptist minister in Connecticut because the Baptist minister wanted the government to come in and rule for the church. They, wanted to come in for the church. And he was like, no, the whole reason, one of the reasons they fought the revolution, he says, was a separation of church and state, meaning that the state couldn't run the church. Not that you're supposed to keep the church or God or anything like that out of the state. That's not what he was referring to. And it's nowhere anywhere in the Constitution at all. It was just a letter that he wrote to a Baptist minister. It's like, 100 words. So you can look it up and read it. But, so what this, there's one nation of Jews. One nation. One little teeny speck of land on this entire planet. There are, how many Muslim nations? There's Hindu nations, there's Buddhist nations, there's Christian nations. But when the Jews want to have their own little nation, it seems like the world loses their mind and they can't handle that. No, sorry Jews, sorry Israelis, you can't have any piece of land at all. That's the Palestinian land that you stole from them, even though you didn't, because you've lived there for thousands of years, well before any of these other people have. It's just it's just their history just goes back to 1948. It seems like that's all they talk about. They've had this stupid little chant that we want to go back to 48 or something. where I don't know, I guess the Palestinians had more land or something. But when you fight, and I think I talked about this last week, but when you fight a war and you lose a war, you lose things. You don't win things. You don't gain land. You don't gain anything. You don't gain treasure. You lose all of that. So yeah, so lovely, isn't it? They want death to Israel and death to America, of course, because we're the evil bastards that are ruining their little lives. There's another sign that was posted here. It says, to friends, those who call for peace are chasing a mirage. As for the resistance, strike them everywhere. What kind of life is that we live in peace with those who abuse our blood and the blood of our children, men and sisters? it's just, they always bring up the children. The children. Michael Jackson. They always bring up the children like somehow we're targeting children, when in fact, on October 7th, that's what they exactly did. I have some clips here from, some pretty graphic material of what they did on October 7th. So the little sign, their little pamphlet goes on. It says, to enemies, the time of calm you sing will not return. Every day we increase in strength and you increase in weakness. For leftist places, that's kind of true. Sorry, that's just the bottom. That's just the truth. New York, the governor, the mayor could have crushed this little resistance, this little pro-terrorist gathering pretty quickly if they actually wanted to. But no, they let it wander on and meander on for 2 weeks. And then finally decided, hey, you know what? We better do something about this because they're holding people hostage. Jews on these campuses felt unsafe, like they were going to be attacked. And in fact, they closed schools. Some of these universities have canceled graduations because of these Hamas-holes. So that the little pamphlet goes on. Our war with you is long, and your losses are many. And they just want peace, though, right? These people just want peace. And I did read that part. This is something you are not used to. You will not find a truce from us, and it's labeled the Lion's Den. That's cute. That's just adorable. These people are so just. They just want, they just want peace. But, and then another thing, there are rumors going around that the Biden administration wants to bring in these Palestinian refugees into the United States. In fact, here, I believe his name is Bowman, the guy that pulled the fire alarm in Congress to stop them from voting. I'll let you listen to what he had to say.
States bring in people from Gaza.
Well, we are a land of immigrants, and we are a land of asylum seekers. Anyone escaping persecution and oppression and violence, the United States has always been an open home to those people. So whether they're coming from Palestine, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico, Haiti, they're coming here to contribute to our economy, which 99.9% of them are. We've always been a place to open our doors to immigrants coming here. So yeah, fully support that. And also fully support amnesty for the migrants who have been here for quite some time.
First of all, you couldn't have done this interview somewhere where the fire department or the cops weren't blazing their sirens. You couldn't have decided, hey, let's go to a different room. So just the people that came here. First of all, the Mayflower, yeah, they were escaping persecution, and they came here to America. And it wasn't a country at that point. There were, of course, the Indian tribes around, and they were, they're not innocent little people either. They were taking land from each other and all that. So some of the Europeans came here seeking religious freedom, and, fast forward several hundred years, lo and behold, the United States of America was born. And yes, we've had many people come here, but the people that came here, like the people speaking of Ellis Island, they came here wanting to be a part of America, wanting to make America better. It seems like the ones that are coming here now aren't those same type of people. They come here expecting handouts. They expect the taxpayers, apparently, to pay for everything for them. You have the migrants that are in New York City and other places that they didn't like the food that was being served to them, or they didn't like the fact that New York had set up, little camps for them, all paid for by taxpayers of New York City and New York and other places. They didn't like that. So they wanted to go back to their 5-star hotels and get the 5-star, hotel food. It's not the same. And in that region, the region of the Middle East, the Palestinian refugees aren't welcome in any of those Arab nations. Egypt, nobody talks about this. It's just nobody talks about the fact that Egypt had. Obviously there is no wall now with. There is no going back and forth between the Gaza Strip and Israel anymore because of what they did on October 7th. But Egypt has a more secure border, and they secured their border during this 6 months of this war that's been going on with Gaza. So they don't want them. None of the other Arab countries around them want them. But and these are the people that overwhelmingly support Hamas and what happened on October 7th. They cheered over the events of October 7th. They cheered over the events of 9/11. And we're going to just say, come over here and do what? What are these people supposed to do when they get here? And who's paying for the flights? I guess that's kind of a stupid question, because that would be you and me that pay taxes. Yeah, that's going to be us. So how about no, Mr. Bowman? No. I'm sorry, but no. I don't want people that are celebrating the destruction of Israel and the attacks of 9/11 and October 7th. No, I don't want those people over here. No, thank you. Sorry. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. No. No, thanks. So, this is great. This is great. And to those other countries he's listed, yeah, we've had some issues with those people that have come here illegal, pouring across our border as well, killing people, killing Americans, Laken Riley raping minors, raping women, robbing, looting, plundering, because it's an invasion of the West. It's an invasion of the West and an attack on Judaism and Christianity. I have an article here that I'm going to read that goes into that, about what the attacks on Christianity. But, yeah. But Biden finally, and then, and I do have an update on that Christian pastor that was attacked by a Muslim in Australia. I'll share that here at the end. But so he's just what he says is just amazing. A true Christian right there. He's a true Christian. But this is what Joe Biden had to say. He finally said something about what's been going on for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Oops. Just a moment.
What about the military?
Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. This is the one I wanted to do. Oh. No, that's not the one I wanted either. Well, let's see. I don't have it. Sorry. Hold on. Let me find it. I thought I had it. Just a minute. All right. I had it in a different folder. All right. This is what President Pooped His Pants has to say.
So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
Okay. We're not a democracy there, Joe. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. So there you go. There you go. He finally said something after like a week and a half of nothing. But let's compare. He didn't do anything. There wasn't, like the National Guard sent in. There wasn't anything like that to help them out. Even though they were given, all right, you have to be out by this time. You have to be out by this time. You have to be out by this time. They just kept defying those orders. But here is what Ron DeSantis had to say.
Campuses. The state of Florida is not New York. And so when you go out and try to commandeer property, when you try to set up encampments, you are not going to be allowed to do that in this state. And people have found that out at University of South Florida, Florida State. So just understand that that's the way it's going to go. We do not allow the inmates to run the asylum in the state of Florida. And if you can't abide by the rules that we have in place for conduct, then we will show you the door and you will be expelled. It is that simple. The second thing is there was a report out that Joe Biden is contemplating importing a bunch of Palestinian Arabs from the Gaza Strip into the United States of America. And I didn't even think Biden was crazy enough to do this. That is not in this country's interest. What we've seen over there, and we've seen the reflections in our own society of people out protesting in favor of Hamas terrorists. I mean, these are people that cooked babies in ovens while they were raping the babies' mothers, executing elderly people. I think part of what we need to do to unify the country going forward is to have people that actually want to assimilate into America, that actually believe in our founding principles, not people that just want to replicate a lot of these blood feuds that we see in other parts of the world. So our view in Florida on bringing in people from Gaza is no, we do not want to do that here in the state of Florida.
Yep. They could have just easily, the president could have come out. Kathy Hochul could have come out and said, we're not doing this here at our universities. Gavin Newsom, because there was a huge, at UCLA, there was a massive, they're so cute. They built themselves a little fort. Of course, they had the matching tents with all the other protesters around the country. Of course, they had that. And then they decided to build a wall. Funny. Isn't that interesting? They built a wall. All these other places in Portland, I think Portland State. Yeah, they built a wall. Almost like walls work. southern border, almost like a wall, does its job in keeping people out of where you are. Funny how that stuff works, how the left does that on their stuff, but then to protect our southern border, the one that we share with Mexico, where all these people are coming from, yeah, it's racist, and it's, you're xenophobic to even think about building a wall and securing our own border, even though they have walls surrounding their property, and they built themselves a little fort there in UCLA with massive walls. Another thing that happened in UCLA that was absolutely brilliant is somebody set up a massive TV that played on loop what happened the day of October 7th. They played the clip of the guy calling his parents saying, "Oh, look at Mom and Dad, I killed a bunch of these Jews." And, his parents were so proud of him. His dad said, "Continue on." His mom was saying, "Kill, kill, kill," telling him to continue because they were so proud of their son. That's who the people that Congressman Bowman wants to bring over is those people. Yeah, no. That would be no. Or in Biden's words, don't. But yeah, it's just funny that how they build walls, keep the cops out from their illegal protest, their destruction of and the aftermath of what at UCLA, Columbia, and other universities is just horrendous. The destruction that they did, and a lot of them. I think I saw a report on Fox News yesterday that somewhere between like 2,000 people have been arrested across the country at these places. And I think many of them, hundreds of them, weren't even students of, whatever university they were protesting at. So, and they had their matching tents, almost like this whole thing was planned, right? It was all planned out. But here's some of the words. They interviewed one of the people there, one of these lovely, students at in New York. But here, a reporter asked her what she thinks was going on, and kind of here's their exchange.
Taking over the building right now.
I think that their cause is a just cause, and I hope that the administration really hears their demands. I think they're just demands.
Do you feel like it was right to hold 3 of the janitor workers hostage inside of the building?
I think that's a really false narrative.
That's what the janitors are saying, that they weren't allowed to leave.
I think that that's a really false narrative.
Even if the janitors are saying that, you're saying that that's not true.
I think that it's a really false narrative that the students took anyone hostage.
How do you feel about some of the Jewish students saying that they don't feel safe here on campus?
I think that this is also a really false narrative that's being promoted.
Do you think October 7th and the attack that happened is a false narrative? Do you believe that some of the women were raped?
Colleague just came back.
So this is what happened.
Can you get out of my face, please?
So this is what you see at these protests. Once you get into the nitty-gritty of what happened on October the 7th, the rape of women, what's happening there, they deny what happened. As you know, that is actually factual now, that the janitorial workers were blocked inside of the building. And anytime you bring that up, the Jewish cause, the Jewish people, the kids that feel unsafe on campus, they deny the reality of it, guys.
Yep. It's a false narrative. Just cause. Yeah, calling for the death of Israel and the death of America, that's a just cause. Supporting terrorists is a just cause. Freaking idiot. Oh, this whole week I may seem like I'm, for this purpose of this show, I'm very, I make fun of it a lot and I laugh a lot, but this whole week, in preparing for this, happy Friday, by the way. I didn't realize I hadn't said that, but I have been so unbelievably frustrated and angry about what the state of the country and at these universities, and Texas isn't, we've seen the big, If you've seen the videos that at UT, they weren't allowed to encamp, though, which is great. That, you know, they had the massive police force and the state troopers and things come in and say, yeah, no, we're not doing any of this. You know, in other southern schools, too. Alabama, Ole Miss, they had, Alabama, they both had a fun little chant that both sides were saying at the same time that said, F Joe Biden, F Joe Biden. So both sides don't like Joe Biden. But yeah, at Alabama and Ole Miss, yeah, they didn't stand for this stuff either. In fact, I can't. And Georgia, at one of them, there was fraternity brothers that were holding up the flag because these Hamas holes were trying to put up the Palestinian flag, and it George Washington University. They this pisses me off so much. It makes me so unbelievably angry that they took a statue of George Washington and draped him in a Palestinian flag and graffitied on the base of the statue genocidal or something like that. I don't remember all that they said, but they put all kinds of stupid little stickers and their flag. They duct taped it to him and put it on the back, and then put that little, I don't know, the scarf thing that they all seem to wear. And they all cover their faces. If you're so brave and if you're so courageous, show your freaking face, you coward. But yeah, so they draped Washington all in this garbage. And yeah, it's just, that's a just cause though, right? Destruction of property, you know, making Jewish students feel unsafe to where they had to cancel classes, cancel graduations, all because of Palestine, all because of something that you think is justified in the destruction of the only Jewish state in the world. No. It's just insanity. So don't send your kids to these colleges and these universities. Do something else, you know, because it just, you know, I guess there's a lot of companies now that don't even require a 4-year degree. Because, I don't know, maybe these companies realize, hey, what we're getting out of these colleges and universities, these students that are coming out of them, they're not really worth it anymore. And so, you know, they practical experience is more desired than an actual degree. Just awful. So there was a quote from President Trump about what's going on. It says, "We have to let Israel complete their war on terror. It's a horrible thing, but they have to do it, and they have to do it fast, and we have to get back to order, and people have to respect law and order in this country." You know, war is not, I've never been to war. I've never seen war. But watching the movies, it's an awful thing. Innocent people die. It's unfortunate that this is what happens in war. We have to allow Israel the right to, could you imagine in September, October of 2001, November of 2001, people, you know, you have countries that were out there saying, no, United States, you can't go, you can't retaliate, you got to hold on, there needs to be, you know, I think we finally went into, an Iraq in 2003, I think, if I remember that correctly. But could you imagine other countries after what happened on September 11th telling us, oh, hold on, no, you need to have a ceasefire, you need to have this, you can't be going in there doing this, you can't be going there and doing that. Americans at that time, 20 years ago, would have said, F you, we're going to defend ourselves, we're going to do what we want. And what we need to do to root out the evil that attacked us. We should be giving Israel that same discretion. because they had, with their small country and their small population, it was the equivalent of 50 to 55,000 Americans dying on October 7th. The 1,300 that died, it was the equivalent of that. So they have every right to defend themselves from the terror that they live in constantly. I mean, you had Iran launch 350 pieces of ordnance at them, drones, missiles, rockets. 350. I mean, as Americans, I think we're very, very spoiled, that we don't have to deal with that mess. We don't have to deal with the thought of rockets raining down on us. And so, then you get people like what's going on with these Hamas holes who are spoiled, who think that America is evil and bad, and are being taught that by their professors and teachers from high school to college. And it's just pathetic. But let me get into this article here. I came across this article here that We Are Frogs in a Kettle from the Blaze Media here. It says persecution, watchdog sounds alarm on growing threat facing American Christians. Because there is. The threat, I mean, obviously with Jews, it's blatantly obvious. It's right there in your face. But Open Doors, the watchdog group born of an effort to smuggle Bibles into communist-occupied Poland, indicted in its latest annual report that one in seven Christians worldwide faces high levels of persecution and discrimination for their faith. The amount to over 365 million Christians are targeted on their backs. Things appear to be getting progressively worse. Granted, 5 years ago, the statistic was 1 in 9. The 10 worst countries for Christians are reportedly North Korea, Somalia, Libya, Eritrea, don't have any idea where that is, Yemen, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sudan, Iran, and Afghanistan, in that order. While a Christian faces a good chance of torture, imprisonment, rape, and death on account of their faith in any one of these oppressive nations, supposedly civilized countries further up the rankings are not much better. China's 6.7 million Christians, for instance, have in recent years been subject to harassment, torture, detentions, and executions. Since Christianity is regarded as a foreign threat to communist regime, churches are frequently desecrated, destroyed, and closely surveyed. In India, anti-Christian attacks have spiked frequently executed by Hindu nationalists, according to the Religious Liberty Commission of the Evangelical Fellowship of India. Numerous pastors and believers have been arbitrarily detained and savagely beaten while their churches were wrecked, especially in the Uttar Pradesh, wherever that is. I don't know where that is either. Christian persecution is not just a foreign phenomenon, it's a problem in the United States as well, and according to another watchdog group, poised to worsen. Forbidden Prayers. Jeff King, president of the Washington, D.C.-based International Christian Concerns, recently suggested to the Christian Post that American Christians are right to get their hackles up. Basically, we are frogs in the kettle and the bubbles keep coming up under us, said King. Too many people are not aware politically, and they're so used to thinking how things were that they can't figure out where those bubbles are coming from, not realizing they're being cooked. King's sense that things are getting worse in the U.S. is reportedly informed in part by Stacey Barber's case in Texas. Barber is a teacher who spent the past 8 years of her 26-year teaching career in the Katy Independent School District near Houston. I used to live there. Beautiful area. According to her lawsuit against the district filed in March on Baber's behalf by the American Center for Law and Justice, she desperately wanted to create a chapter of Students for Christ at Cardiff Junior High, having previously sponsored a chapter in Alief ISD. The principal, Scott Rounds, allegedly shut her down on multiple occasions. However, in the 2023-24 school year, Barber and some Christian students prevailed in setting a Fellowship of Christian Athletes chapter, which Rounds apparently reluctantly approved. In September, there was a prayer event on campus called See You at the Pole, which was scheduled to take place before school hours ahead of the event. Rounds, he's the principal, allegedly sent out a memo stressing district personnel shall not promote, lead, or participate in the meeting of non-curriculum related student groups. This principal apparently also sent an email to Barber stressing that she could not take part as she would be on campus visible to students in her role as an employee. Barber ultimately met at the pole to prayer before work hours on September 27th, 23, and was joined by two other teachers. According to the complaint, the principal chastened Barber and forbade the teachers from praying in the presence of students. Guaranteed that doesn't happen if it's some other religion or if it's an alphabet soup group. None of this is going to happen. Indicating the purpose of the prohibition was to avoid the risk of students potentially joining in. Following the prohibition, Barber apparently faced more antagonism from the administration. The Supreme Court has made it clear that students and teacher prayer, including prayer at SYATP events, is indisputably as a protected form of speech that the school officials may not ban, says the lawsuit. The American Center for Law and Justice said in a statement, the primary goal of this lawsuit is to ensure that the school amends its policy to reflect what the Constitution actually requires. This school policy strips teachers and employees of their fundamental right to express their faith freely, must be struck down. We need your support in our legal battles, right for you to pray. King told the Christian Post that Barber's case not only highlights the depth of ignorance among school boards and even at the principal level of what rights the Constitution grants people, but also a wider hostility towards Christians. The big picture and what people need to grasp is that what's going on here in the West and that's what a lot of people who dislike Christianity are proposing and trying to push forward, said King. King suggested that countries whose leaders are apathetic toward Christianity and enjoy influence over a politically weaponized judicial system can suppress Christian speech and even promote them to withdraw from public debate. The president of the watchdog highlighted how India, for instance, has religious freedom in its constitution, but it does not matter. It's what happened here in practice, continued King. And so when pastors are often attacked in the streets or in churches, guess who gets arrested? It's the pastor. Surprise. Shocked. What happens is you keep your head down. So this is what we're seeing in the States. People learn that you do not stick your head up and you start being quiet because the process is the punishment, said King. Extra to an increasingly antagonistic justice system, King suggested that Christians face legislation keen to shut them up or handcuff them linguistically. He cited as examples hate speech legislation in other Western nations, as well as Democrats' proposed Equality Act. The Equality Act, which resembles in spirit the recent Title IX rewrite, which, if you hadn't known, it goes on to say that, announced by the Biden Department of Education, which would have defined sex to include gender ideology, meaning so that men who identify as women can now compete in women's sports and take their trophies, and it's okay. It's strategic. It's Banana Republic, the article goes on. And these are political enemies of Christianity, said King. They've gained power, and they're pushing the very laws, the very powers of democracy to go against their political enemies, while anti-Christian forces are advancing in legislatures and courts around the country. They are also active on the streets. Aurelio Del Turco, director of the Center of Religious Liberty at the Family Research Council, noted in a February report that between 2018 and 2023, there were at least 915 acts of hostility against American churches. The attacks ranged from vandalism and arson to bomb threats. That's not reported in the news at all. The Blaze News previously highlighted the Turco's findings that between January and November of 2023, there were at least 436 such attacks, 8 times as many as there were in 2018, such that 2023 ended up being the worst of all 6 years reviewed by the FRC. So the FRC observed 315 incidents of vandalism that year, 75 arson attacks or attempts, 10 gun-related occurrences, and 20 bomb threats. I remember as a kid, we were at a church in Connecticut, and I think there was a bomb threat for that. It just was canceled and we left. Nothing happened, but yeah, that was back in like 93. There is a common connection between the growing religious persecution abroad and the rapidly increasing hostility toward churches here at home, our government's policies. Surprise. In the way, a remedy, King thought, beyond legislation or politics, stating this really comes down to revival, and it starts with us personally. We've all got to turn back and cry to the Lord about not the political state of our country, but the religious state, said the watchdog. We desperately need revival, and that all starts with us personally looking to the Lord and calling and saying, "Call me back. I am completely yours. Whatever you would have me do, all my life is yours." Absolutely. The political state of our country is because our spiritual state isn't where it should be. And then to end today, I'm going to play this part of that Christian pastor that was attacked by that Muslim and was stabbed multiple times. So this is what he had to say on Palm Sunday.
I stand as a very proud Aussie. I want the Australian government to hear this, and the whole world. I was born in Iraq. I am an Assyrian. My origin, I am an Assyrian, and a very proud Assyrian. Because the Assyrians have a very profound history of knowledge, culture, science, masters. And as an Assyrian, I am a very proud one. But above all, and beyond all, I belong to Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I'm a very proud Christian. Jesus Christ is the love of my life. This is a given. This will never change. By His grace, I'm nothing, but He's everything. I was born in Iraq. I'm Assyrian, Christian Assyrian. Migrated to Australia in 1985. My second home is Australia. Let me say this to the Australian government and to every beautiful Aussie. I am a very proud Aussie. I may not look it, but as they say, do not judge the book by its cover. Maybe the looks is not Aussie, but the heart, I can assure you, is a fair income true blue down under, brother. I will put the prawns on the barbie with Mr. Albanese and with Mr. Peter Dutton any time of the day. And I'll say to them, g'day mate, and let's have some bush tucker meat pie, mate, because life is not worth it. And fish burger and chocolate sundae is my shout, Mr. Albanese and Mr. Peter Dutton. I am a true blue Aussie. I am proud to be an Australian. And wherever I go, wherever I travel across the globe, when I come back here, this is home. And I said it, I am very proud of these great Anzac warriors who gave their life up to the very human rights, to the very freedom of speech and freedom of religion. They died to keep and preserve the human identity and integrity. I salute my beloved Anzac warriors, and whoever walks in that path must be saluted. And this is why I stand for that freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Every human has the right to the freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Every human being, no matter who that is, everyone has the right. God bless you.
You know, after being attacked, and he goes up, and that's just amazing. He's proud of being a Christian. He's obviously proud of being an Aussie. But the state of the country and the state of the world isn't, there's a lot of good. There is a lot of good. I mean, there has to be a lot of good because there's a lot of, there is a lot of evil going on right now. Obviously, with what's going on, there's a lot of that. But there is a lot of good. And we have to return and turn ourselves back to God. And when we do that, as a nation, as a people, as a family, do it with your family. Do it with your family. Do it with your friends. As communities do that, and as societies do that, things will get better. I truly believe that. Things will get way better if we all turn ourselves back to God, return to our churches, return to reading the scriptures, return to prayer, because he's just there waiting for us. He's right there waiting for us to return back to him and to bless us. But we have to put in some effort. So hopefully you've enjoyed the show. Like I said, you can follow me on Facebook, X, TikTok, True Social, and YouTube. Kate and Eric Show on all of those. So please have a great weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Bye-bye.